Tonight, the tourniquet is tightening on Donald Trump. His right-hand man, his fixer, Michael Cohen, now in a fix himself, may be about to flip. Rather than take the fall for the man who's cut him off, Michael Cohen could be ready to tell what he knows, from payoffs to women to deals with the Russians. The president who's made a new friend in Singapore now sees an old friend saving himself from Sing Sing. Good evening, I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. There are signs tonight that Trump's longtime attorney and personal fixer Michael Cohen may be closer to flipping on the president. Under federal investigation in the Southern District of New York, Cohen is suspected of possible bank fraud, wire fraud, and campaign finance violations. And today, George Stephanopoulos of ABC News was first to report that the law firm defending Cohen will not continue to represent him after Friday of this week. Most explosive, however, is ABC's reporting that, quote, Cohen, now with no legal representation, is likely to cooperate with federal prosecutors in New York. Sources said this development, which is believed to be imminent, will likely hit the White House, family members, staffers, and counsels hard. NBC News has not independently confirmed that Cohen intends to cooperate, but has verified that Cohen is parting ways with his legal team. That rift, according to the New York Times, concerns the payment of legal bills to his lawyers and their relative lack of experience with the federal prosecutor's office in New York. The Times also reports that Mr. Trump himself has told people he is angry at Mr. Cohen over the messiness of the situation. But the president has also indicated to allies that he is worried that if he pushes Mr. Cohen away too hard, it could increase the likelihood that Mr. Cohen will offer information to the government. Cohen has not been charged with any crimes, and people familiar with the matter tell NBC News he has yet to speak with federal prosecutors involved in the inquiry. Cohen is best known for facilitating that hush money payments to Stormy Daniels to keep her from discussing an alleged affair with the president. Well, last April, the FBI raided Cohen's home, office, and hotel room, seizing, among other things, electronic devices that may contain recordings of his telephone conversations. Today's reporting indicates that Cohen's defense team will remain on the case until this Friday, when they're expected to finish their review of those seized materials. Joining right now is Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee. Greg Brower is a former U.S. attorney and former senior FBI official. Philip Bumps, a national correspondent with the Washington Post. And Kate Fang is an MSNBC legal analyst. Katie, I want to start with you, because I think you've been watching this Cohen guy for a while now. And he, you know, I was reading For Whom the Bell Tolls the other night, trying to catch up, and they said when they're fighting the fascists, that when you have a sad look on your face, be careful. That's the one that's about to switch. That's the one that's about to turn. It's a giveaway. And I've heard that from an actor who's been playing him lately, too. What is this? What's going on with Cohen? Can you tell?
So there's a myriad of reasons why we're hearing this furor over whether or not Cohen's going to be, replacing the lawyers that are McDermott, Will, and Emery that are currently representing him. I mean, here's the bottom line, Chris. It's expensive. I mean, these lawyers in Washington and New York are charging upwards of almost $1,000 an hour to be able to represent Michael Cohen. So it could just be something as simple as the almighty dollar, and that is the reason why Cohen is dropping these lawyers on Friday. But here's a possible wrinkle. It could be the lawyers dropping Mr. Cohen, actually. So,
well, they had a look at all, they've been looking, Katie, they've been looking at all that stuff. All those tape recordings, all that stuff, all this perhaps payoff information, all the Russian connection. This could be just too much to handle for these people.
I don't think it's from a quantitative standpoint it's too much. I think it could be from an actual ethical standpoint that it could be too much. Remember, when you hire a lawyer as a client, you make representations to that attorney. But attorneys have ethical obligations that are higher and beyond the client. And so if Michael Cohen, while his team of lawyers have been going through millions of documents and only a tiny percentage of them have deemed to be privileged, can you imagine what these lawyers have seen? So it could be an issue where the lawyers themselves cannot continue to represent Mr. Cohen because of what they've discovered. Or it could be the lawyers for Cohen have said, Michael Cohen, you need to cooperate. You should take a deal. You don't have an opportunity to really fight this. And Cohen could say, hey, you know what? I'm a fixer. I don't have to take a deal. Who knows? There could be a strategic decision in terms of a no meeting of the minds, irreconcilable differences, as we call it sometimes, when we as lawyers dump our clients. It could be a lot of reasons. We hear it's money. In fact, today, Judge Kimba Wood in that Southern District of New York case with Michael Cohen issued an order, sua sponte, meeting on her own, and she basically said, hey, parties, don't forget, you got to pay that special master her money when it comes due. So who knows if it's related to the money. It could be something more than that. But we do know that today Michael Cohen was in California meeting with his lawyers in the Stormy Daniels case. So it's not just the Southern District of New York case that Michael Cohen has going on. He has defamation, Stormy Daniels, and the Mueller investigation.
Petty or Grant, let me go to Congressman Swalwell. Is this a case where the hardball being played by Mueller is going to pay fruit? They're going to get information from Michael Cohen.
He better start talking soon, because the longer he waits, the more they question his motivations to cooperate. But Chris,
what do you mean by that? If he switches now, is it too late to be credible?
No. And there are people who've done very bad things who can still be honest about what they saw around him. Happens all the time. We prove a lot of cases
Valachi
doing that way. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Right.
But Chris, take a step back here. The president has a fixer. Innocent people don't have fixers. The last president who had a fixer, he didn't fare so well. And so I think this guy knows a lot.
Who was the last president to have a fixer?
I think it was probably Richard Nixon, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, didn't fare so well. So he's seen a lot. He knows a lot. If he starts talking, I think the president's in real trouble. From what we saw in our Intelligence Committee investigation, what little we saw about Michael Cohen, he was all too willing and eager to work with the Russians. It's just the Republicans were all too unwilling to learn more about his bank records, his travel records, and his phone logs. Bob Mueller is going to learn all of that.
Greg, I'm looking at this treasure trove. They got voice record, they got telephone. Apparently, you know, Cohen was recording telephone conversations, probably with his client. All this stuff is now in the hands of the master deciding how much is going to be used in this investigation.
Yeah, there's clearly a lot there. He clearly knows a lot
all
about,
the checks.
About all things Trump, and so this will be very interesting. In terms of what exactly is going on with this change in legal team, time will tell. What will be telling, I think, most telling, is who he hires next. If he hires a high-priced, first-rate legal team, we know that he's serious about fighting this, or he's serious about cooperating and wants a team who can cooperate effectively with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District. So we'll see who he hires, and that'll tell us a lot.
You might go for Brendan Sullivan here in town. Go for the big time. Anyway, Cohen's cooperation could pose a number of possible dangers for Trump. When it comes to the payoff to Stormy Daniels, the president first denied knowing where the money came from. That is until his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, revealed it had come from him.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
No, I don't know.
They funneled it through a law firm. Funneled through a law firm, and the president repaid it.
The president paid it. Well, Cohen could also shed new light on his connections to Russia and what the president knew about those relationships. As we recently learned, Michael Cohen received a $500,000 payment from Columbus Nova, a company connected to Russian billionaire Viktor Vekselberg, who reportedly is close to Vladimir Putin. We also learned that Cohen's efforts to build a Trump Tower in Moscow went on far longer than he had publicly acknowledged, at least until June of 2016. And that means, of course, Trump was trying to build a hotel over in Russia, get some Russian rubles at the same time he was seeking American votes. That's complicated. And then there's that story from McClatchy last April, a couple months ago, that appeared to corroborate part of Christopher Steele's dossier. The report that the special counsel has evidence that Michael Cohen secretly made a late summer trip to Prague during the 2016 presidential campaign. NBC News has not confirmed that reporting. I've got to go to Philip on this. Philip, tie it all together. This guy is a pinata of information, from Russia to women to payoffs to God knows what, and all they got to do is crack them. And it all comes out.
You didn't even mention the fact that he worked for almost a decade for the Trump Organization, even prior to the campaign beginning. There's probably no one in Donald Trump's inner circle who knows more about Donald Trump's dealings before, during, and after the campaign than Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen has his finger in nearly every report that's out there that is potentially bad news for Donald Trump. There is a Michael Cohen angle to it. I mean, if you look just at that campaign period, we have on one end of the scale this payoff to Stormy Daniels of $130,000, where there are very likely campaign finance violations that were involved in that. We don't know Donald Trump's awareness of that. Then at the other end, you have the Steele dossier and these allegations that Michael Cohen was central to collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign. Those are unproven in the public eye at this point. We don't know that that's true. But those are the two poles of information just within the campaign period that obviously Robert Mueller and federal investigators would love to know more about. And beyond, on either end of the campaign, he knows all sorts of things as well.
How do you think George Stephanopoulos and ABC got this story that he's about to switch, about to go state's evidence?
Well, I mean, based on what the story actually says, it suggests that they had someone somewhat close to Michael Cohen. It's not really clear. I mean, it's, you know, but there are certainly these external indicators.
Could be the President of the United States?
I mean, I wouldn't speculate on that.
Then he might have said to George or somebody, I haven't talked to him. It's just tradecraft here. George was just over with the President. Did the President tell him Michael's about to switch?
It's certainly possible, and this is, as one of the other guests said, we'll find out down the road. But
it's a big story that ABC's standing behind. Let me go to Greg again on this thing. What would you rather do if you were Michael Cohen? Would you make a deal with Mueller and hope for a reduced sentence or no prison time, or wait for your pardon from the president? Which side do you join here?
Well, expecting a pardon is a dicey proposition, to say the least. There's a bit of a track record of late of issuing pardons by this president, but that's a tough thing for a target like Cohen to anticipate and expect. He's under a lot of pressure. I mean, he's potentially, you know, hasn't been charged with anything yet, as you mentioned at the outset, but potentially he is facing a lot of exposure, and so he has to be feeling the pressure and thinking about his future, his family's future, and hopefully listening to his lawyers going forward.
Well, you hear bank fraud, mail fraud. I mean, to a civilian like me, that sounds like serious federal crimes involved.
It's very serious, and I would submit that he's a very, very valuable witness for Bob Mueller and his team. And there's a lot there. So
Congressman, let's talk about the politics of this. In the end, it's going to come down to a report from Mueller. It's going to go to the House, your house, where you sit. How does this, when you get witnesses like Cohen, witnesses like Manafort potentially, witnesses like Flynn already, is that going to carry any water with your Republican colleagues?
Not until they pay a price. That price is coming in November, but they right now are looking at what happened to Mark Sanford last night, and they figure,
don't deviate.
We better go all in with the president right now. But they're going to pay a price.
Why do these Republicans march like they're in the North Korean army? They smile in unison. They have the same facial expressions. Every time you see a bunch of them together, they're the same face.
It's very cultish. The president's attorney has a bingo card of crimes that he is exposed for, and none of them want to speak up and say anything. So we're not going to change their minds at this point. We have to change their seats. But I think
you're talking about the Republicans, not the North Koreans.
Well, yeah.
Both of them.
But come November, I think we change a majority. We go into the majority, change their seats. I think a lot of them are going to see that Donald Trump can't save them, and they should start collaborating.
I think it's likely you will get in charge. Anyway, meanwhile, with the North Korean summit out of the way this week, there's new pressure on the president to testify before the special counsel's prosecutors. According to Bloomberg News, Mueller is intent on quickly resolving a central issue with Trump's legal team, where the president will sit voluntarily for an interview after months of negotiations. The two sides must find common ground or gear up for an unprecedented legal fight, likely to go all the way to the Supreme Court. Let me go to that with Phil Bunk. Does it look like, why would Trump ever agree to go and testify under oath if he could avoid it? Because then he'd have to say under oath what he says publicly, which no one believes.
Well, I mean, it certainly is the case that Donald Trump has presented that he is willing to speak with Mueller in the past, and I think there's probably some aspect of truth to that. Donald Trump clearly thinks that he is a very good at negotiating, that he can get in a room and sort of work his way through these things.
Well, so did Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton's a lot smarter.
I mean, it's absolutely true that Bill Clinton thought that he could get around it as well. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, certainly there is no one that I have seen who's offering legal advice to President Trump who recommends that this is a good idea. But that potential Supreme Court fight over a potential subpoena from the Mueller team, it's not clear that Trump's team would actually win that fight. And so that it could actually protract the entire Mueller investigation while they fight this in the Supreme Court, which Mueller wouldn't want, but certainly Trump wouldn't want that either. And so it may actually...
I wouldn't put it past Trump to just say no to a subpoena and test it. Just say no and
no, that's fair, but then he has to deal with this for month after month after month, whereas sitting down with them, he doesn't have to do that.
He's trashing every institution of government right now. He might as well go after the Supreme Court. Anyway, thank you, Congressman Eric Swalwell and Greg Brower and Philip Bump and Katie Fang. Coming up, Republican Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee says his party is like a cult when it comes to falling in line behind President Trump. Corker's on the way out, of course, so he can talk honestly, but the number one sin in today's Republican Party is crossing Donald Trump. Plus, Trump is bragging that there's no more nuclear threat from North Korea. He's telling everyone here at home that they can sleep well tonight. But does he really believe his own hype after giving so much to North Korea for so little in return? And the Hardball Roundtable takes on the Republicans' cult-like mentality tonight. Plus, it sounds like a broken record, but Scott Pruitt's at it again, this time raising new and more ethics questions. And now a big name on Fox says he's got to go. Meanwhile, let me finish tonight with Trump Watch. This is Hardball, where the action is. Welcome back to Hardball. A senior Republican senator is now calling his own party cultish for their blind loyalty to President Trump and fear of upsetting him. Here was Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee earlier today.
Look, we're in a strange place. I mean, it's almost it's becoming a cultish thing, isn't it? It's not a good place for any party to end up with a cult-like situation.
Well, Corker's scathing attack comes a day after he criticized his fellow Republicans for not supporting legislation to prevent Trump from imposing tariffs on some of our closest allies. Let's watch.
And a lot of them would vote for it if it came to vote. But no. Gosh, we might poke the bear. It's a language I've been hearing in the hallways. We might poke the bear. The president might get upset with us as United States senators if we vote on the Corker Amendment. So we're going to do everything we can to block it.
The bear used to be the Russians. Anyway, of course, Corker feels free to criticize the president because Senator Corker, is retiring at the end of this year. And one reason many of his fellow Republicans are less inclined to speak up, they want to get reelected. Well, last night, South Carolina Republican Mark Sanford, who once said the president should just shut up and stop focusing on his critics, lost to primary challenger Katie Arrington. She made Sanford's criticisms of the president a centerpiece of her campaign. Well, the president weighed in on that race just hours before the polls closed, tweeting, "Mark Sanford has been very unhelpful to me in my campaign to make America great again. He is missing in action and nothing but trouble." Meanwhile, in Virginia, another Trump ally, Corey Stewart, won the Republican Party's nomination to take on Senator Tim Kaine in the fall. Kaine, of course, ran with Hillary Clinton as vice president last time. Well, Stewart has a history of promoting the birther conspiracy theory about President Obama. He also has been a vocal supporter of Confederate monuments. What a sweetheart he is. For more, I'm joined by John Ferry, a Republican strategist, and Cornell Belcher, a Democratic pollster and MSNBC political analyst. Well, you know, Corker's not exactly a bomb thrower, and he's out comparing this guy to James Jones and drinking the Kool-Aid and cults, and that's pretty deep.
I don't think that...
but you don't think it's true?
Well, listen, I think that upsetting the Trump voter, not necessarily the president, but the Trump voter, is bad politics.
You mean the bear?
The bear.
He's talking about the bear.
The bear is the Trump voter.
Oh, really?
And Sanford, you know, it's easy to complain when you're leaving or get on your soapbox.
That's the point.
That's the easiest thing to do. The hardest thing to do is to run again and compete and win these voters and actually appeal to them on the issues they care about. And what they care about are jobs. They care about national security. They care about rising wages. Right. And they care about immigration. And, Mr. Corker is leaving, and, no one cares what he says.
Well, you're making this point, Cornell. I think John just made the point. The only guys free to speak their minds are the ones leaving.
Right.
Well, look, there is something different about this president. What we're seeing there, certainly Bush didn't hold the base of the Republican Party this way, and as someone who worked for Barack Obama, let me tell you, he certainly didn't hold the base of the Democratic Party this way. There is something very different that's going on here, and I mean, he said it himself. Trump said, "I can stand in the middle of Times Square and shoot someone, I wouldn't lose any support." So there is something textually different from with Trump than what I think we saw from Bush and Obama. But the question for me becomes, can you be the party of Trump? And I think Speaker Boehner's got it right. This is Trump's party now. Can you be the party of Trump and also be the party of Middle America? Yes, you can do very well in these primaries, but I can tell you right now, the Republican they nominated to take on Virginia is way out of line with Virginia. And I think
is he still a birther? This guy?
Well, aren't you once a birther? Aren't you always a birther?
Well,
I think Trump switched.
I think if you look at Corey, I think if you look at Corey Stewart, he had pretty big name ID, and the guys he ran against, no one had heard of before. So that actually helps.
Can you run in the Republican Party this November without Trump's blessing?
I think it's awfully difficult to run against Trump in any way and win anything in the.
You're proud of this party?
Listen, this is the party.
Are you proud of this party?
What I'm proud of is very low unemployment. I'm proud of.
Are you proud of your party?
I'm always proud of my party. I think my party.
My party, right or wrong?
I think my party is representing its voters very effectively.
But what's the party, right? Is this the party of Bush and Reagan, or is this now the party of Trump? And I think, and by the way, and listen, I don't have.
I've never seen anything like this. Your party was good on trade. It was a free trade party. It was good on deficits. It was always for part of fiscal responsibility. Trump just comes in and changes all the rules, and you guys say yes, sir.
And law and order.
You guys say yes, sir. You say yes, sir. You're proud of that?
I think that the evolution of trade has been pretty substantial over the last 20 years. Look at what Rob Portman did. He was USTR trade ambassador. When he ran for re-election before Trump, he talked about steel. He talked about the importance of steel.
You just told me that anything Trump wants, he gets.
Well, I think right now he is.
Well, that's not exactly
popular.
principle.
He's extremely
Where's
popular.
the principle? And I'll do anything the boss tells me to do.
He's extremely
Where's
popular.
Where's the principle in that? There's no principle there. Anyway, during his concession speech, Congressman Sanford, who's looking pretty good actually, defended his past positions, like down in Buenos Aires. Let's watch.
There's been too much made of, are you for one personality or against it? What we're about as a nation is not being for or against one personality. Again, we're a nation of laws and not men, as the Founding Fathers said. And I stand by that belief, though in this case it may have had significant electoral consequence.
Yeah, he lost the primary. He's not going to be a congressman anymore. Sanford's opponent, by the way, Kate Arrington, had backed Senator Marco Rubio during the 2016 presidential election. Last night, however, she declared the Republican Party of Trump while attacking Democrats who stand in the president's way. Here she is.
They believe in higher taxes, bigger government, fewer jobs, and that's the problem. It's the job of Washington to fix it. We are the party of President Donald J. Trump.
Wow, there it is.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, if you look at these primaries, but also you look at all the popularity ratings, Trump has about 90% approval rating with the Republicans, which is pretty high. Right?
I think the only guys taking on the president right now are going to be Michael Flynn, probably Manafort, and probably Cohen.
I don't think they're going to take on the
anyway, we'll see. Thank you, Ferry, for being in the barrel one more time. Thank you, Cornell Belcher. As I mentioned earlier, Virginia was one of the 5 states to hold a primary last night, and come the midterm elections, the state is expected to host one of the most closely watched congressional races in the country. Last night, Democratic State Senator Jennifer Wexton beat out 5 other candidates for the right to take on Republican Congresswoman Barbara Comstock in Virginia's 10th congressional district. Comstock, of course, is viewed as one of the country's most vulnerable House Republicans and one of the toughest incumbents. Hillary Clinton won that district by 10 points during the 2016 election. If Democrats have any hope to take back the House, the path goes directly to the 10th district in Virginia. For more, I'm joined by State Senator Jennifer Wexton, who won 42%. Very powerful senator. Thank you for coming on tonight. Let's talk about you and Barbara Comstock. Comstock is one of these tough incumbents. They're survivors. How are you going to knock her out?
Well, I have deep roots in the district and a record of winning tough elections and then delivering for my constituents once I'm elected. I think those things really resonate in the district. Barbara also is out of touch. You know, she says one thing and does another. She represents.
How about guns? Talk about your guns difference.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a big area of contrast. Barbara Comstock has an A rating from the NRA. She's one of the top recipients of money from them, despite having been in Congress for only a short time. I, on the other hand, have been fighting for gun safety legislation in Richmond for years. And I'm going to continue to do that on the trail and in Congress.
What about immigration? Talk differences. What's the difference in you and the incumbent Republican you have to beat this November on immigration? What's the difference?
Well, we live here in Virginia 10 in a very diverse district. We have a big Muslim population, and Barbara Comstock was silent when Donald Trump started the Muslim ban. We have a big international airport, Dulles Airport, in our district. I was there along with many members of Congress, other elected officials, and hundreds of people from the district protesting, and lawyers, and Barbara, not a peep.
What about this MS-13 thing that Trump keeps talking about? MS-13, the gang from Latin America. Is that a danger that you're not facing up to? Let's talk about it.
Republicans want to equate MS-13 and immigration. They want to conflate those issues. They did it in 2017 in our statewide elections, and it failed miserably. Voters are smarter than that, and they really don't respond well to this race baiting and fear mongering. I think what's really important are things like the fact that Barbara Comstock is refusing to sign on to the discharge petition for DACA protections.
Yeah.
You know, she is, and rather than take a stand on something, she stands for nothing.
Do you want Trump to come in the district and campaign against you? Would that help you?
I don't think anybody can control what the president does.
Give me a word for him.
Divisive.
Senator? Huh?
Divisive.
Yeah. Can you go any further than that?
I mean,
Go ahead.
His whole persona is about dividing us and making us weaker by dividing us. I think that we need to come together, and we're stronger when we focus on our commonalities.
That's a good message. Thank you so much. State Senator Jennifer Wexler won a very impressive victory yesterday, 42% against a very wide field. That's a good number. Congratulations, Senator. Up next, President Trump's back in Washington, D.C. and selling the deal he made with Kim Jong-un. He says everybody should sleep well tonight because there's no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Does he actually believe his own stuff, his hype? I don't know. Do we ever figure that one out? Does he ever believe anything he says? How would we know? This is Hardball, where the action is. Welcome back to Hardball. President Trump returned from his summit with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un and immediately went on to become a salesman for the guy. But his claims on Twitter this morning seemed wildly premature. Don't you think? Even naive. Trump wrote today, President Obama said that North Korea was our biggest and most dangerous problem. No longer. Sleep well tonight. That's the president. And everybody can now feel much safer, the president tweeted today, than the day I took office. There's no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea, says the president. For the record, experts believe North Korea has as many as 60 nuclear weapons, and last year they tested long-range missiles that could reach here. Senator Chris Van Hollen responded, this is truly delusional. It has some arsenal today, same arsenal today as it had 48 hours ago. Does he really think his big photo op ended North Korea's nuclear program? Hope this does not equal reality. Hope does not equal reality. Well, joining me right now is Joe Cincione, president of the Plowshares Fund and an MSNBC nuclear security analyst. Well, we were arguing about this, with the producers, that it often happens today, arguing about if he can no longer sort of stand out and threaten people with nuclear weapons, does that reduce the threat that he actually will use them? In other words, can he saber rattle after coming out of Singapore?
No, Kim is not going to saber rattle, but that does not actually reduce the threat. Historically, the way the military evaluates threats is on capabilities, not intentions. Why? Because intentions can change. Yes, I would say the threat is reduced. I would say the world is safer now, but it is not gone. This summit process didn't eliminate the North Korean threat. They have a vast complex. They spent 5 decades building it up. Missiles, nuclear weapons, nuclear production facilities. We're a long way from eliminating that threat.
Well, in a newly aired interview on Fox News late today, Donald Trump again offered some startling praise for the autocratic ruler of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. Let's watch this.
Chairman Kim wants to resolve the problem because he knew that we weren't playing around. I wasn't playing around. He's not playing around. I think we have a very good relationship. We understand each other.
You know, you call people sometimes killers. He is a killer. I mean, he's clearly executing people.
He's a tough guy. Hey, when you take over a country, tough country, with tough people, and you take it over from your father, I don't care who you are, what you are, how much of an advantage you have. If you can do that at 27 years old, I mean, that's 1 in 10,000 that could do that. So he's a very smart guy. He's a great negotiator. But I think we understand each other.
But he's still done some really bad things.
Yeah, but so have a lot of other people done some really bad things.
What in the world does that mean? That is Michael Corleone, right? The Godfather 1, when Kay says something about senators, well, senators kill people. Yeah. He's talking like we're as bad as he is.
Right. This is
Why does he say that about this country, our country?
The far right has, and many other people have long denounced this kind of moral equivalency. Yeah. Well, everybody does bad things. No, they don't do things like this. They don't.
Who's the last president to poison somebody in an airport?
Who's his half-brother?
And his uncle.
He kills his uncle.
He kills his uncle. 300 people. He's not. Presidents of the United States cannot knock people off.
Right. So what's going on here is two things. One, he genuinely admires tough autocrats. I mean, it's very clear who he likes. Dictators, ruthless thugs, people who can run a syndicate. Right. And the second thing is he's doing a sales job. He's trying to draw Kim in. I'm going to love you. Come with me. We could be friends. Just agree to what this paper I've.
So he shows us. He puts a movie together for the president. Anything that works for me. He shows a movie of how North Korea is going to flourish and become some happy hunting ground for travelers and tourists and young couples. It's going to be the home for whatever. What's that about? Let's take a look at it here. But they showed him a flashy 4-minute video produced like a fake movie trailer showing how great it's going to be. The White House said the National Security Council actually put this together. Look at this. Majestic look at the future of North Korea. Look, symphonies, science, everything. Look at this.
The two of us together, right, on the road.
Ski
Don
slopes.
And Kim.
It's amazing. Anyway, it's meant to convince the North Korean leader to end his country's isolation. Let's watch part of that video now.
Destiny Pictures presents a story of opportunity, a new story, a new beginning, one of peace, two men, two leaders, one destiny. Will this leader choose to advance his country and be part of a new world? Be the hero of his people? Will he shake the hand of peace and enjoy prosperity like he has never seen?
Well, there's the luge there and cigarette boats and all this future. I was thinking, is it going to be like Club Med over there now?
Well,
is that what he is talking about? Their beachfront properties and how good they're going to be for resorts? He's talking to a thug, to a communist.
And talking about condos and developments, maybe a Trump Tower in Pyongyang. Hasn't quite mentioned that yet, but you know that's the next move. This is like the film you see in a timeshare office. Yeah. This is a real estate salesman's con job. Look at how your family could be here in this beautiful world. Just sign on the dotted line. That's what he's doing.
See how they're going to put the water lines in and the sewer lines in and all that? It does remind me of, what's like an old movie with a bad guy. What's the one about? I was sorry, about the real estate movie. Anyway, thank you, Joe Strancione. I'll think of it in 5 minutes.
Chris.
Anyway, up next is the Republican, Glenn Boss. Anyway, the Republican Party becoming more like a cult than a political party. Boy, that's hard news for the Republicans. You're in a cult. This is Jonestown. The Hardball Roundtable sticks with us. Plus, Scott Pruitt's at it again. First, we learned he wanted to land his wife a Chick-fil-A franchise. Now there's reporting that he enlisted EPA staff, people working for the government, to go find donors to find her a job. Well, he's using his people, isn't he? Is he going to last? You're watching the Hardball. Welcome back to Hard. We're back with more on today's top story. Signs tonight that Trump's longtime attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, may be closer to breaking, to cooperating with prosecutors. The Washington Post is now reporting late tonight that the pressure on Cohen has intensified and the focus of the investigation, adding that amid his escalating legal concerns, Cohen is feeling neglected by the president, his longtime patron, for whom he has long professed his loyalty. For more, I'm talking with the Hardball Roundtable. Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today. Eugene Scott, political reporter for the Washington Post. Sam Stein, politics editor for the Daily Beast. Susan, it begins to look like a mob movie. You've got the guy in there, Johnny Five Angels, you know. Remember him, Johnny Five Angels, you know. He's caught. He knows the mob's after him. He's got to go somewhere. He's ready for witness protection.
Family dynamics are a complicated thing, especially when you're paying lawyers these big fees, you're out of money, you're under pressure, you're being investigated on two fronts.
And where's Daddy?
And are you alone? It's that's a perilous for Michael Cohen, kind of perilous.
What is stopping?
Kind of perilous for everybody else.
What is stopping the president, who has proven lately his willingness to say, I can pardon anybody on earth? And I've been doing it. Give me Muhammad Ali, who doesn't even need a pardon. I'll give it to anybody. You know, Jack Johnson. I'm just thinking of stuff here. Why doesn't he just do it? Nobody's explained this to me. Get this guy out of the way. Give him a total pardon for life, like Jerry Ford gave Dick Nixon, and walk away from the trouble.
Well, he may end up doing that, but I think there's been some concern that Trump isn't as loyal to Michael Cohen as Michael Cohen is to Trump. Perhaps this was a very one-sided friendship, and maybe that's what Cohen's seeing and feeling right now.
Because if you pardon a guy totally, then they don't have to talk.
Does he?
They can just not talk.
I'm not a lawyer, but doesn't Cohen have to be indicted or charged with something before being
pardoned? But
Nixon was never indicted.
Okay, well then go ahead and do it.
Well, what do you look at this guy? You work on ABC's report tonight, courtesy of George Stephanopoulos. Some have speculated he may have gotten this tip from the president. I mean, he was just with him. Who else?
There's very little obvious respect for the norms here going on, and it certainly wouldn't shock the system if there was some back-channeling here. What's striking to me about all this stuff is sort of the context in which it's taking place, where the assumption is that if Cohen flips, it will be a catastrophe for the president. There's a line in this Post piece, a prospect that they see as potentially dire. The only reason you would see someone flipping as potentially dire is if there were guilt there. Yeah. And this seems to be the pretext for basically everything, which is we have to keep this guy.
Well, we keep hearing about mail fraud and bank fraud.
Why would you have to pardon someone and keep him from flipping unless he knows something?
Right. Well, that's right. Well, don't you assume it?
I mean, at this point,
Rudy was out there. Rudy Giuliani was talking about this sort of MO with the president. When he wasn't president, if he had a girl situation, a woman situation, there was a method for dealing with that. He had this regular draw of $35,000 a month.
Yeah, there's
I mean, he basically laid it out for us. Rudy did. I don't know why he did, but he did.
Well, I'm sure that wasn't the best thing that he could have done, but it certainly gave the suggestion that something had happened, and that's, I think, why we also see the president panicking and constantly tweeting saying nothing happened. It's behavior that you wouldn't expect from someone who's actually innocent.
But you know, in fairness, he was his fixer before he was a president who needed to worry about some of the optics of things you might fix, right? So Michael Cohen will know things, presumably knows things about previous chapters of Donald Trump's life that may not be the best thing to have.
Yeah, but the undertone of this,
especially if you're a pro-life president.
The undertone of this article, though, is that there are two competing investigations, and the one that is happening about the previous White House experience, previous campaign experience, will feed into the next one. And Mueller is trying to parlay that into getting Cohen to talk about things like this peace plan that he got from Ukraine.
You're so sophisticated.
Thank you.
Outgoing, putting things together like that. Outgoing Republican senator. I love this phrase, outgoing. In other words, they actually start talking when they're outgoing. They become outgoing. Anyway, Bob Corker's calling out his fellow Republicans as being like a cult, like Jonestown or something under President Trump. Let's watch.
We have a lot of people who are willing to do the things that they feel are right for our country. We have some who are fearful of upsetting the president. Again, it would mostly be around the leadership. But it's not a good place for us to be.
Well, Corker said part of the cultish behavior comes from concerns over getting reelected. Of course, South Carolina Congressman Mark Sanford, who lost his primary last night after poking the bear, told the Washington Post today that Republicans don't want the tweet that I got last night. There's no motivation like self-motivation, Gene. Yeah. They don't want to. This guy, Roosevelt, couldn't get rid of people. He couldn't purge them when he tried in 38. It wasn't doable in the old. They made the Democratic Party a little more loosey-goosey, but they don't take orders like the Republicans do.
Well, right now, I think they're saying that the voters are with Trump far more than the voters have been with Congress, and they're just nervous and they're afraid. And I think what's been interesting to me...
Don't they want a local person to be a little bit independent?
No, not at all. We haven't seen that at all. But I thought, one of the things I find very interesting about Corker's words, even Flake's words, is that this personality cult was happening way before what we have now, back when Corker was encouraging people to get on the Trump train. And so I haven't seen a lot of self-reflection admitting what role they played in creating this political
Finally, another week, another scandal for EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. Today, the Washington Post reported that Pruitt had a top aide, an EPA aide, official person, contact Republican donors, people with money, to help his wife, Pruitt's wife, land a job with a conservative political group. Sam... This guy is like a Pez dispenser. It just keeps coming out one after another.
This has to be the sixth segment that you and I have done, in which one of the topics is another Pruitt scandal, and it is remarkable the extent to which he, just sort of brushed aside ethical considerations in his actions, but also remarkable is the extent to which Trump seemingly doesn't care. And what I have been able to suss out in my reporting is that one of the things that binds these two men together is this mutual conception that they are targets of an unfriendly press corps, an adversarial press corps. And so Trump almost empathizes with Pruitt's plight in the sense that he believes
it's all
that
your
his
fault,
enemy
Sam. You guys in the press.
Yes, we were the ones who made Pruitt go.
But I think it's going to be a verb now.
A used mattress
to Pruitt. It's going to be my word, because I think he just keeps doing it, an active verb. The roundtable sticking with us. Up next, these three will tell me something I don't know. You're watching Hardball. Take a look at this. Tonight on Jeopardy, look who showed up in one of Alex Trebek's clues.
Books for 600. This host of Hardball gives a behind-the-scenes portrait of a presidential brother in Bobby Kennedy. Nick. Who is Chris Matthews? Yes.
And the name of the book is Bobby Kennedy. We'll be right back. We're back with the roundtable. Susan, tell me something I don't know.
So you just said don't people want a local person when they vote for somebody for election? Well, we've had a new poll out of Ohio, a USA Today Network Suffolk University poll, and we asked, do you want this your vote in November to be a message that to change where Trump is going or to support where Trump is going? 49% of Ohio voters, a Republican state that went for Trump, say my vote is intended to change where Trump is going. Only 28% said it's to support where Trump Trump is going. And here's another interesting thing. Only 1 in 5 voters say, my vote is not related to my message about Trump.
So everybody's admitting Trump's the issue.
Trump is driving even Ohio
both sides.
Local elections.
Yeah. Gene.
Dennis Hoff, a brothel owner in Nevada, who also wrote The Art of the Pimp.
New name to me.
Yeah, he won his GOP primary last night, and it's crediting Donald Trump with paving the way for people like him to get into politics.
There's nothing sacred. Go ahead, Sam.
How do I top that? As of this morning, according to the president, there is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Something you didn't know. Because it's not true. There still is a nuclear threat. It looks like Secretary Pompeo says they're hoping to get a start of denuclearization by the end of the president's first term.
Well, I'm still responding.
Whatever I said
anyway,
ignored.
We don't have it in our list. Anyway, let me ask, I guess, no more time. Thank you, thank you, Gene Scott, and thank you, Sam Stein. When we return, let me finish tonight with Trump Watch. It's pretty tough tonight on Trump, not surprising, because he's really getting over ahead of his skis. I love that's an old Obama phrase. You're watching Hardball.